This is part 2 of the story of a man who never knew how to say no until he learned the hard way. You can check out part 1 in the description box, if you haven't. So, the days passed, and Kofi's new personality only grew stronger. The village of Adam, usually a quiet and peaceful place, began to feel the ripples of change as Kofi's newfound personality spread through the community. Villagers whispered about the transformation in the man who had once been known for his unyielding kindness, and while some admired his courage, others viewed his change with anger. Kofi was aware of the talk, but he paid it little mind. His focus was on his family and their future, and he knew that the only way to secure their future was to confront Chief Mensa and reclaim the land by the river. The thought of facing the chief again filled him with a mix of fear and determination, but Kofi knew that this was a test he could not avoid. If he backed down now, he would forever be seen as a man who could be easily manipulated, a man who lacked the courage to stand up for what was his. Amma stood by her husband's side, offering him quiet support as he prepared for the confrontation ahead. She could see the storm brewing in Kofi's eyes, a storm of emotions that he was struggling to control. But she also saw the strength in him, a strength that had always been there, buried beneath his gentle nature. Amma knew that Kofi was capable of great things, and she was determined to help him see that for himself. "Kofi," Amma said one evening as they sat together under the stars, "you are not alone in this. The chief is powerful, but he is not invincible. You have the support of your family, and there are others in the village who believe in you. Remember this whenever the time comes to face him." Kofi nodded, his mind heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. "I know, Amma. And I am grateful for your support. But this is something I must do for myself, for our family. I cannot allow him to take what is ours without a fight." Amma smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That is the Kofi I know. The man who will fight for what is right, even when the odds are against him." The following morning, Kofi set out early, determined to gather support from the villagers before confronting the chief. He knew that facing Chief Mensa alone would be difficult, but with the backing of his community, he might stand a chance of reclaiming his land. As he walked through the village, Kofi approached those he had helped in the past, men and women who had once benefited from his generosity. First, he visited Nana Akua, an elderly woman whom Kofi had often assisted with her farm work during the planting season. Nana Akua greeted Kofi warmly, her wrinkled face breaking into a smile as she saw him approach. "Kofi, my son, what brings you here so early?" she asked, offering him a seat on the small wooden bench outside her hut. Kofi sat down, his heart pounding with anticipation. "Nana Akua, I need your help. Chief Mensa has taken my land by the river, and I fear that he has no intention of returning it. I plan to confront him, but I need the support of the village to do so. Will you stand with me?" Nana Akua's smile faded as she listened to Kofi's words. She knew the chief well and understood the challenges Kofi faced. But she also knew Kofi's character and his unwavering commitment to doing what was right. "Kofi, you have always been a good man," Nana Akua said, her voice filled with affection. "You have helped me many times when I was in need, and I will not forget that. You have my support, my son. I will stand with you." Kofi thanked her, feeling a surge of hope as he left Nana Akua's home. He continued his journey through the village, visiting those he had aided over the years. Some were hesitant, fearful of the chief's power, but others agreed to support him, moved by Kofi's determination and the sense of justice that fueled his actions. As the day wore on, Kofi found himself standing before the home of Kwesi, a man known for his influence in the village. Kwesi was a respected elder, and his support would be important in influencing others to join Kofi's side. Kofi took a deep breath and approached Kwesi's compound, unsure of how the elder would respond. Kwesi was sitting outside, surrounded by his grandchildren, when Kofi arrived. The elder looked up, his sharp eyes assessing Kofi with a gaze that seemed to pierce through to his soul. "Kofi," Kwesi said, his voice calm and measured, I have heard about your troubles with the chief. What brings you to my home? Kofi bowed his head respectfully before speaking. Elder Kwesi, I have come to ask for your support. Chief Mensah has taken my land, and I fear that he will not return it. I plan to confront him, but I cannot do it alone. I need the backing of the village, and I ask you to stand with me. Kwesi remained silent for a moment, his eyes studying Kofi's face. When he finally spoke, his words were thoughtful and deliberate. Kofi, you are a good man, and I have always admired your kindness. But confronting the chief is no small matter. He is a powerful man, and he will not take kindly to being challenged. Are you prepared for the consequences? Kofi met the elder's gaze, his voice steady as he replied. I am prepared, Elder Kwesi. I know the risks, but I cannot stand by and let him take what is mine without a fight. I must do this, for my family and for my own dignity. Kwesi nodded slowly, a look of approval in his eyes. Very well, Kofi. You have my support. I will stand with you, and I will speak to the other elders as well. But remember, this will not be an easy battle. You must be strong and wise in your actions. Kofi thanked Kwesi, a deep sense of gratitude filling his heart. With the elders' support, he knew that he had a real chance of reclaiming his land. But he also knew that the battle ahead would be fierce, and he would need to draw on all the strength and wisdom he had gained over the years. As Kofi made his way home that evening, he felt a mixture of fear and determination. The support of the village was crucial, but it would not guarantee victory. He would need to confront Chief Mensah directly, and he would need to be prepared for whatever the chief might throw at him. Amma was waiting for him when he arrived home, her face lighting up as she saw the resolve in Kofi's eyes. How did it go? She asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Kofi smiled, though his expression was serious. The villagers are with me, Amma. Kwesi has agreed to support us, and he will speak to the other elders as well. But the real test is yet to come. I must confront the chief, and I must do it soon. Amma nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Then we must prepare, Kofi. You are not alone in this. We will face the chief together, as a family. Kofi felt a surge of love for his wife, her unwavering support giving him the strength he needed. Yes, Amma. Together. That night, Kofi lay awake, his mind racing with thoughts of the confrontation to come. He knew that Chief Mensah would not back down easily, and the chief's influence and power made him a formidable opponent. But Kofi also knew that he could not allow fear to dictate his actions. This was a fight for his family, for his land, and for his own sense of self-worth. It was a fight he could not afford to lose. As the first light of dawn crept over the surface, Kofi rose from his bed, his heart pounding with anticipation. Today was the day he would face Chief Mensah. Today was the day he would reclaim what was rightfully his. This was a day that would determine not just the future of his land, but the future of his family and his place in the community. Kofi rose early, his movement slow and deliberate as he prepared himself for the confrontation. He could feel the weight of the village's expectations on his shoulders, knowing that many were counting on him to succeed, not just for his own sake, but as a symbol of resistance against the chief's greed. He dressed in his best clothes, a gesture of respect for the gravity of the situation, and tied a red cloth around his waist, a sign of his determination and resolve. Amma was already awake, preparing a simple breakfast for the family. She moved quietly, her face set in a calm expression that belied the worry she felt inside. As Kofi entered the kitchen, she looked up and gave him a reassuring smile. "Are you ready, Kofi?" she asked, her voice steady but soft. Kofi nodded, though his heart was pounding in his chest. "As ready as I can be, Amma. I've spoken to the villagers, and many have agreed to support me. But this is something I must do on my own." Amma reached out and took Kofi's hand, squeezing it gently. You are not alone, Kofi. Remember that. We are with you, always. Kofi felt a surge of gratitude and love for his wife, her strength giving him the courage he needed. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, then turned to his children, Kojo and Abina, who were watching him with wide, anxious eyes. Children, Kofi said, bending to their level, today is a very important day for our family. I want you to know that whatever happens, I am doing this for you, for our future. Be strong and take care of your mother while I'm gone. Kojo and Abina nodded solemnly, their young faces reflecting the seriousness of the moment. Kofi gave them each a hug, holding them close as he drew strength from their innocent trust. Then, with one last look at his family, Kofi stood tall and walked out of the house, his steps sure and determined. The path to Chief Mensah's compound was smooth, a route that Kofi had taken many times before. But today, every step felt heavier, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. As he walked through the village, he noticed the curious gazes of the villagers, some of whom gave him nods of encouragement, while others watched in silent anticipation. The village was buzzing with the knowledge of what was about to happen, and Kofi could feel the eyes of his community on him, waiting to see how this day would unfold. When Kofi reached Chief Mensah's compound, he found the gates open, as if inviting him in. The compound was large, with high walls and a grand entrance that spoke of the chief's wealth and power. Kofi hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady himself, before stepping through the gates and into the chief's domain. The courtyard was quiet, with only a few servants going about their duties. Kofi could see the main house in the distance, a structure made of sturdy wood and stone, its roof thatched with palm leaves. He walked across the courtyard, his footsteps echoing in the stillness, until he reached the entrance of the house. There, he was met by one of the chief's attendants. Kofi, the attendant said, his tone formal, the chief is expecting you. Please, follow me. Kofi nodded and followed the attendant into the house, his heart racing with every step. The interior of the house was cool and dark, the air thick with the scent of burning incense. As they walked through the corridors, Kofi could hear the murmur of voices coming from a room up ahead. The attendant led him to a large wooden door, then stepped aside, gesturing for Kofi to enter. Kofi took another deep breath and pushed open the door, stepping into the chief's audience chamber. The room was spacious and richly decorated. At the far end of the room, seated on a high-back chair carved from ebony wood, was Chief Mensah himself. The chief was a large man, both in stature and presence, with a commanding air that filled the room. He wore a robe of vibrant cloth, its bold patterns reflecting his status and authority. His eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on Kofi as he entered the room, and a small smile played on his lips. Kofi, Chief Mensah said, his voice deep and resonant, I see you have come to speak with me. What is it that you wish to discuss? Kofi bowed his head respectfully before speaking. Chief Mensah, I have come to discuss the matter of my land by the river. It was taken from me under circumstances that were not just, and I am here to ask for its return. Chief Mensah's smile widened, though it did not reach his eyes. Or the land by the river. Yes, I remember. But tell me, Kofi, what makes you think you have any right to demand its return? Kofi felt a flash of anger at the chief's dismissive tone, but he forced himself to remain calm. This was not the time to lose his temper. He had to be strong, but also wise in his approach. Chief Mensah, Kofi began, his voice steady, the land was given to me by my father, who worked hard to cultivate it and make it prosperous. It has been in my family for generations, and it is our source of livelihood. I was misled into signing it over, and I believe that was done in bad faith. I ask you, as a man of honor, to return what is rightfully mine. The chief's expression darkened, and he leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Misled, you say? Kofi, you agreed to the terms that were presented to you. You were not forced into anything. Perhaps you were too trusting, too eager to please. But that is not my concern. Kofi could feel the tension in the room rising, but he held his ground. Chief Mensa, I may have been too trusting, but that does not make what happened right. I am asking you to do the honorable thing and return the land to me. Chief Mensa's smile disappeared entirely, and his voice took on a hard edge. You are bold, Kofi, to come here and make demands of me. Do you forget who I am? I am the chief of this village, the one who decides what is just and what is not. You would do well to remember your place. Kofi felt a surge of fear at the chief's words, but he refused to back down. This was his moment, and he could not afford to waver now. I have not forgotten who you are, Chief Mensa, Kofi replied, his voice firm. But I also know that being a leader means upholding justice and fairness. If you take what is not yours, what does that make you? I am not here to disrespect you, but to appeal to your sense of honor. For a moment, the room was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Chief Mensa stared at Kofi, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, the chief leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful look crossing his face. You speak of honor, Kofi, Chief Mensa said, his tone more measured now. But honor is a matter of perspective. From where I stand, I have done nothing wrong. The land is mine now, and I have every right to keep it. Kofi's heart sank at the chief's words, but he knew that he could not give up. He had to try one last time. Chief Mensa, Kofi said, his voice tinged with desperation, I am asking you as one man to another, please, return the land to me. If not for me, then for my family. They depend on that land for their survival. I am willing to work for you, to do whatever it takes to make this right. But please, do not take what is ours. Chief Mensa regarded Kofi for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, finally, he spoke. You are persistent, Kofi. I will give you that. But persistence is not enough to change my mind. The land is mine, and it will remain mine. That is my final word. Kofi felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under him. He had come here with the hope of reclaiming his land, but now that hope was slipping away. He had tried reasoning with the chief, appealing to his sense of honor, but it seemed that nothing could sway him. As Kofi stood there, struggling to find the words to respond, a thought occurred to him, one last, desperate idea that might just turn the tide. Chief Mensa, Kofi said, his voice steadying as he grasped onto this final hope, if you are so certain that you are right, then let us settle this matter in the traditional way. Let the village decide who is just in this matter. Chief Mensa's eyebrows arched slightly at Kofi's proposition. He knew that Kofi had stopped helping the villagers like he always do, so he felt with confidence that the villagers will go against him. The traditional way, you say? Chief Mensa's voice was laced with amusement. You are either very brave or very foolish, Kofi. But I accept your challenge. We will let the village decide who is right in this matter. Kofi felt a surge of determination course through him. This was his last chance, and he would not squander it. He nodded solemnly. Thank you, Chief Mensa. I trust the wisdom of the village will prevail. The news of the upcoming settlement spread quickly through Adam, creating a buzz of excitement and anticipation. It was a rare event, one that promised to reveal the true character of the participants. Villagers whispered among themselves, speculating on the outcome. Many admired Kofi's courage, while others were curious to see how the chief would handle such a challenge. The elders, respected members of the community who had seen many seasons come and go, were called upon to judge the matter. They gathered in the village square, where a large crowd had already formed, eager to witness the confrontation. The square was alive with the sounds of murmuring voices. Kofi arrived at the square, with Oma and their children. His heart pounded with a mixture of anxiety and hope. He knew this was his final opportunity to reclaim his land and his dignity. As he stepped forward, the crowd parted to allow him through, their eyes filled with both respect and expectation. Chief Mensa was already there, seated in a place of honor with an air of unshakable confidence. His followers stood around him. The chief approached Kofi, and for a moment, the two men locked eyes, a silent battle of wills. The elders called for silence, and the village square fell into a silent anticipation. Elder Kofi, who had pledged his support to Kofi, stepped forward to introduce them. Today, we gather to witness a settlement of words between two men, Chief Mensa, our esteemed leader, and Kofi, a son of this village who seeks justice. Today, the truth shall be revealed, and the wisdom of the village will guide our decision. Let the words spoken here today be judged by the ancestors and by us, their descendants. It began with Chief Mensa being the first to speak. He rose from his seat with a commanding presence, his voice deep and authoritative as he addressed the crowd. People of Adam, you all know me as your chief, a man who has led this village with strength and wisdom. The land in question was given to me legally, with Kofi's full consent. There was no trick, only an agreement made between two men. It is true that Kofi has been a generous man, but generosity does not entitle one to make demands when a deal has already been made. I stand before you today, not to defend my actions, but to uphold the integrity of the agreements we make as men of honor. If we cannot trust each other's word, then what is left of our community? The crowd murmured in agreement, Chief Mensa's words striking a chord with many who believed in the sanctity of one's word. Kofi knew he would have to respond with wisdom and humility if he was to influence the hearts and minds of the people. Kofi stood and faced the crowd, his voice steady but filled with emotion. My people, I do not stand here to deny that I agree to the terms presented to me. But I ask you, was that agreement made with full understanding and fairness? Chief Mensa agreed to use the farm for just one season. I was misled, pressured into giving up something that my family has held dear for generations. It is true, I trusted too easily, and for that, I take responsibility. But does that make it right for a man to take advantage of another's trust? Does it make it honorable to take what is not yours by exploiting another's kindness? Today, I stand before you not as a man who seeks to break an agreement, but as a man who seeks to correct a wrong. I ask you to consider not just the letter of the agreement, but the spirit of it. What kind of village do we want to be? One where the strong prey on the trusting, or one where we protect and uphold the values of fairness and justice? The crowd's murmurs shifted, and Kofi could see some of the villagers nodding in agreement. He knew he had struck a chord, but the battle was far from over. The second round continued, with Chief Mensa arguing that strength and wisdom in leadership required making tough decisions, even if they seemed harsh. He portrayed himself as a leader who had to think of the greater good, not just the desires of individuals. Kofi, in turn, appealed to the shared values of the village, the importance of community, the need to protect the vulnerable, and the duty to act with integrity. He spoke of how trust and fairness were the cornerstones of their society, and how leaders should be the embodiment of these values, not above them. As the debate raged on, the crowd's mood began to shift more noticeably in Kofi's favor. The villagers, many of whom had benefited from Kofi's kindness, began to see the chief's actions in a new light. They realized that while Kofi had been naive, his intentions were pure, and his cause just. The chief, on the other hand, appeared increasingly out of touch with the values he claimed to uphold. Finally, it was time for the elders to deliberate. The tension in the village square increased as the elders started discussing among themselves, weighing the arguments presented by both men. The villagers waited in anxious silence. After what felt like an eternity, Elder Kofi stepped forward to deliver the verdict. Chief Mensa, Kofi, Kofi began, his voice calm but authoritative. We have listened to both of you carefully. The matter before us is not just about a piece of land, but about the values that define us as a community. Chief Mensa, While you acted within the bounds of the agreement, we believe that the spirit of that agreement was violated. Kofi, though you were too trusting, your intentions were noble, and your cause is just. Elder Kwesi paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. The land shall be returned to Kofi, as it rightfully belongs to his family. However, Kofi, you must learn from this experience. Your trust in others is a gift, but it must be tempered with wisdom. As for you, Chief Mensa, let this be a reminder that true leadership is not just about power, but about justice and fairness. The village will be watching to ensure that such a situation does not arise again. The crowd bursted in cheers, a wave of relief and joy sweeping over the village. Kofi felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he realized that he had won, not just his land, but the respect of his community. He turned to see Oma, tears of happiness in her eyes, and his children, their faces beaming with pride. Chief Mensa, though defeated, maintained his composure. He knew the decision of the elders was final, and while it affected his pride, he accepted the verdict with a nod of acknowledgement. The chief rose and left the square, his followers trailing behind him, leaving Kofi and the villagers to celebrate their victory. As the crowd surrounded Kofi, congratulating him and offering their support, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had learned a valuable lesson, that being good and kind did not mean allowing others to take advantage of him. He had learned to stand up for himself, to say a no when necessary, and to fight for what was right. And in doing so, he had not only reclaimed his land but also reaffirmed the values that made his village strong. That evening, as the sun set over the village of Adam, Kofi sat with his family outside their home, the land by the river stretching out before them. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and music as the villagers continued to celebrate. Kofi looked at Oma and his children, feeling a deep sense of peace. He had faced his fears, confronted injustice, and emerged victorious, not through force, but through the power of truth and the strength of his convictions. And so, Kofi's story became a part of the village's history, a tale of a good man who learned that goodness is not weakness, but a strength that must be guided with wisdom. A man who discovered that sometimes, saying a no is the most powerful act of kindness one can offer to oneself. And with that, Kofi, now wiser and stronger, continued to live in Adam, respected by all, knowing that good is not foolishness, but a force that can change the world when guided by the light of truth. He promised to make sure his children avoid this big mistake, but do you think his children will fail him? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Like and subscribe for more interesting and educating stories like this. Thank you.